The damage you experience in a narcissistic relationship is incomparable, incomprehensible, and unfathomable. It might sound an exaggeration, but it is not. Because the damage that you experience happens at different levels to different aspects of you as a human being, which is why I call it multifaceted impact or multifaceted damage. It damages your emotional and psychological self. You already know that, but the biggest damage is done to your physiological self. It damages your brain and your nervous system. How it damages your brain, I have already talked about that in a previous episode, and you might find the link over here. Today in this episode, we're going to talk about how it damages your nervous system in depth. If that sounds interesting and you're ready to dive in deep with me, please make sure to subscribe by pressing the subscribe button and press the bell icon to stay updated. Let's get started with the basic understanding of how our nervous system works. Because for you to know and understand the damage, you need to know what our nervous system does and where does the damage happen. There are two parts of the nervous system: central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Today we'll focus on central nervous system. Central nervous system is responsible for controlling and coordinating almost all main functions of our body: speaking, thinking, all the five senses that you know of, and it consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Now this central nervous system has two parts. You can imagine a switch, a light switch. A light switch has two states, on and off. A central nervous system has two states: parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. One of the many things our central nervous system takes care of is survival. It ensures we are safe and activates survival responses in case we are exposed to a danger or we perceive threat, real or imaginary. How does it do so? By activating the SNS, sympathetic nervous system part. Why and when? We'll talk more about that in a moment. First, let's come to understanding the function of PNS, parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is the part of CNS that is activated when we feel safe, when we are in a state of rest and digest. At a physiological level, when PNS is activated and dominant, our heart is beating slowly and rhythmically. So is our breathing. It is slow and rhythmical. Our body is loose. Our muscles are not tense. We are able to access the prefrontal cortex, the part that is responsible for thinking, rationalizing, using logic, planning, plotting and stuff. We are able to access what we call executive functioning. This part should be dominant most of the times, given we're no more living in jungles and we're no more chased by beasts. Well, in our case we are, because we have survived narcissistic abuse. That's why we need to understand what happens at the nervous system level. So that was PNS. Now SNS. SNS is activated, triggered and pushed to come online when we are exposed to some kind of danger, when we perceive a threat or when we feel we are about to be harmed by something or someone. When SNS is dominant, there is a lot of stuff that changes in our nervous system, in our brain and our body. At the bodily level, our bloodstream is flooded with stress related, or I would say stress inducing hormones such as cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine and stuff like that. What that does is it prepares us for fighting, running away, or freezing in case we're not able to deal with a threat. So we feel a lot of energy in the body. There's a lot of activation. There is hyperarousal. Our nervous system and the rhythm is completely changed, which shows up as increased heart rate, shallow breathing, tense muscles. Our body is ready to fight or run away. We also are processing so many things in the moment. We're hyper attuned to the environment. We're hyper vigilant, hyper focused, ready to protect ourselves or those who are associated with us. That was a little about PNS and SNS. You might wonder, what does it have to do with surviving narcissistic abuse? Well, it has everything to do with it, because when you are with a narcissist, the whole game is changed. Your physiology, your psychology, the way you process emotions, feel emotions, and express emotions, everything is changed from A to Z. Talking about your nervous system, most of the times in a narcissistic relationship, there is chaos, there is conflict. You're always kept walking on eggshells. You do not know when the narcissist is going to react, how they are going to behave, and what response would you be needed to give. So you're ready to fight. You're constantly activated, which means your sympathetic nervous system is dominant. It's activated but dominant. Naturally, what should be the rhythm like? Most of the times, as I said earlier, PNS should be dominant and SNS should show up here and there, but PNS should come back. For you, PNS never comes back and SNS stays online for most of the time you are with them. Now, when SNS stays dominant, what happens is that you're constantly in a survival state, constantly activated. There is so much going on in the body. Your blood is flooded with these hormonal levels, stress hormones that are not coming down. Consequently, it causes injury because this is an overwhelming demand on the brain and the body. We're not designed to function this way. Our sympathetic nervous system is designed to come online here and there, as I said, but it is not supposed to stay dominant. In our case, as survivors of narcissistic abuse, it stays dominant, which exhausts, fatigues, and kills the resourcefulness of our body. All of this leads to the dysfunctionality of our nervous system. The rhythm is altered, which means SNS learns to stay dominant most of the time, which is the opposite of how things should be. And when that happens, you just understand that it is equivalent to pressing gas, brake simultaneously, but not going anywhere. The car is running, the engine is running, you're trying, but nothing is happening. That is the amount of arousal in the body, which leads to adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue. And that is the origin of all of the diseases, because you're constantly surviving, constantly trying to make it from moment to moment, but you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting yourself out of the trap to relax. You're not able to calm down. And if you're not able to calm down for years, imagine what would happen to your body, what would happen to the different systems within, what diseases would take birth, cardiovascular diseases, digestion-related diseases, immune system-related diseases, brain-related diseases. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on and on. The damage lies in the alteration in the rhythm. That is the damage caused by narcissistic abuse. That is how it destroys our nervous system, which is why even after leaving, you feel the same way as you felt when you were with the narcissist. This is very important to understand because many survivors push themselves for not being able to move on or for not getting over the narcissist just after leaving them. How would you be able to do that when the nervous system has changed its functioning, when you have been traumatized to your core? You need to give yourself time. You need to give yourself space. You need to give your nervous system time to adapt to the new environment. You have to do the trauma work. You have to do the stabilization work. You have to help the nervous system to normalize its altered dysfunctional rhythm. You have to help it bring PNS online and keep it online. That is what would lead to deep healing. That was it for today's episode. I hope you found it insightful and helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments. And also let me know if you want me to create another episode on how to help the nervous system, how to stabilize it. I'll talk with you in the next one. Until then, let the healing begin.